and welcome back to Bedtime Stories ASMR. Tonight we are back with some classic moral tales that will spark nostalgia for a lot of people. Aesop's Fables. I have this gorgeous hardcover printing of this book, complete with illustrations inside and this beautiful golden spine. As you can hear, it is a rainy, stormy night, so sit back and relax, grab a nice warm beverage or water, and let's settle in. I always think it's so cozy whenever it rains. The bitter patter of the little raindrops just make a perfect environment to rest. These Aesop's Fables videos, like the Greek mythology videos, are collected into a playlist for you to enjoy. I'll have it pop up here if you'd like to take a look. But before we get into our reading for tonight, I have a little game that I'd like to play with you. I'm going to show you a little critter, and your job is to tell me which fable it came from. Let's see how well you know your Aesop's Fables. We're going to start out with something pretty easy. Here we have a sparkling little turtle, also known as a tortoise. Alright, do you have your answer in mind? If you said the tortoise and the hare, you're correct. Slow and steady wins the race. Alright, that one was a softball. Let's move on to the next. This next one we actually read in a previous video. We have a little lion, the king of the jungle. Alright, hold that answer in your mind. If you said the lion and the mouse, you're correct. The least may yet help the greatest. There he goes. Alright, last one. I have here this gorgeously framed photograph of my cat. We also read this story in the last video. Hold that answer in your mind. Okay, if you said the fox and the cat, you're correct. That lesson is, it's a common habit to say what is right and do the opposite. But really, this last little quiz was to introduce you to the two little critters that have often interrupted my videos. If you've been around or seen my previous videos, you might have noticed that every now and again you hear a little meow of interruption, or you see little paws cross the screen. And that is because of my two darling cats. This is Shadow. He's the one that snores really loud. And this is Cecilia. Now you know the two little cameo critters that you may or may not have seen make a guest appearance in my videos. Let me know how many fables you were able to guess down in the comments. Alright, without further ado, let's get into our fables. This beautiful golden ribbon marks where we left off last time. There are so many Aesop's fables. Every time I think I've read them all, there's another one that I haven't heard. I used to read these a lot as a kid, but this one particularly I do remember. The Wolf and the Crane. A wolf one day ate his food so greedily that a bone stuck in his throat, giving him great pain. He ran up and down and offered to reward handsomely anyone who would pull it out. A crane, moved by pity as well as by the prospect of the money, undertook the dangerous task. Having removed the bone, he asked for the promised reward. "Reward," cried the wolf. "Pray you, greedy fellow, what reward can you possibly require? You have had your head in my mouth, and instead of biting it off, I have let you pull it out unharmed. Get away with you, and don't come again within reach of my paw. Know those whom you would serve." This book has these beautiful illustrations in it. And there's a little turtle in this one. When I was a kid, my copy of this book did not have illustrations, but that's okay because I had a very active imagination. The Fox and the Tiger. A skillful archer, coming into the woods, directed his arrows so well that the beasts fled in dismay. The tiger, however, told them not to be afraid, for he would singly engage their enemy and drive him from their domain. He had scarcely spoken when an arrow pierced his ribs and lodged in his side. The fox asked him slyly what he thought of his opponent now. "Ah," replied the tiger, writhing with pain, "I find that I was mistaken in my reckoning. Knowledge is power. Honor, prudence, and pleasure. Honor, prudence, and pleasure undertook to keep house together. Honor was to govern the family, prudence to provide for it, and pleasure to conduct its arrangements." For some time they went on exceedingly well, and with great propriety. But after a while, pleasure, getting the upper hand, began to carry mirth to extravagance, and filled the house with gay, idle, riotous company, and the consequent expenses threatened the ruin of the establishment, so that honor and prudence, finding it absolutely necessary to break up the partnership, determined to quit the house and leave pleasure to go her own way, which did not continue long, as she soon brought herself to poverty, and came a-begging to her former companions, who had now settled in another habitation. However, honor and prudence would never afterward admit pleasure to be a partner in their household, but sent for her occasionally on holidays to make them merry, and in return they maintained her out of their alms. Intemperance has an alluring aspect, but a dreadful retinue. Basically just saying everything in moderation. Oh. This is a continuation to our little story about the lion and the mouse. Look at that. It's the sequel. The Fatal Courtship. A lion, whom a mouse had freed from a snare, was so grateful to the mouse that he told him to name what he most desired, and he should have his wish. The mouse, fired with ambition, said, "I desire the hand of your daughter in marriage." The lion good-naturedly gave him, and called the young lioness to come that way. She did so, and rushed up so heedlessly that she did not see her small suitor, but placed her paw on him and crushed him to death. Bad wishing makes bad getting. The Two Rabbits. A rabbit who was about to have a family entreated another rabbit to lend her a hutch until she was able to move about again, and assured her that she should then have it without fail. The other very readily consented, and with a great deal of civility resigned it to her immediately. When the time was up, she came and paid the first rabbit a visit, and very modestly intimated that now she was up and well, she hoped she might have her hutch again, for it was really inconvenient for her to be without it any longer. She must therefore be so free as to desire her to provide herself with other lodgings as soon as she could. The other replied that she truly was ashamed of having kept her so long out of her own house, but it was not upon her own account, for indeed she was well enough to go anywhere. So much as that of her young, who were so yet weak that she was afraid they would not be able to follow her, and if she would be so good as to let her stay a fortnight longer, she should take it for the greatest obligation in the world. The second rabbit was so good-natured and compassionate as to comply with this request too, but at the end of the term came and told her positively that she must turn out, for she could not possibly let her be there a day longer. "Must turn out," says the other. "We will see about that, for I promise you, unless you can beat me and my whole litter of young, you are never likely to have anything more to do here." Majorities promote tyranny. The ass, the dog, and the wolf. A laden ass was jogging along, followed by his tired master, at whose heels came a hungry dog. Their path lay across a meadow, and the man stretched himself out on the turf and went to sleep. The ass fed on the pasture and was in no hurry at all to move. The dog alone, being gnawed by the pangs of hunger, found that the time passed heavily. "Pray, dear companion," said he to the ass, "stoop down, that I may take my dinner from the pannier." The ass turned a deaf ear, and went on cropping away at the green and tender grass. The dog persisted, and at last the ass replied, "Wait, can't you, till our master wakes? He will give you your usual portion without fail." Then a famished wolf appeared upon the scene and sprang at the throat of the ass. "Help, help, dear Towser," cried the ass, but the dog would not budge. "Wait till our master wakes," said he. "He will come to your help without fail." The words were no sooner spoken than the ass lay strangled upon the sod. Favors beget favors. Very petty of the dog. Here's another lovely illustration. There seems to be something wrong with this guy. I wonder if it has something to do with the two bears standing above him. The Travelers and the Bear. Two men about to journey through a forest agreed to stand by each other in any dangers that might befall. They had not gone far before a savage bear rushed out from a thicket and stood in their path. One of the travelers, a light, nimble fellow, got up into a tree. The other, seeing that there was no chance to defend himself single-handed, fell flat on his face and held his breath. The bear came up and smelled at him, and taking him for dead, went off again into the wood. The man in the tree came down and, rejoining his companion, asked him with a sly smile what was the wonderful secret which he had seen the bear whisper into his ear. "Why," replied the other, "he told me to take care for the future not to put any confidence in such cowardly rascals as you. Trust not fine promises." That's funny. Have you ever heard the saying? I used to hear it all the time by my little friends growing up. They would say it to tease each other. They would say, if we're running from a bear in the woods, I don't have to be faster than the bear. I just have to be faster than you. Yeah. Technically correct. You don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the person next to you. The Bee and the Fly. A bee, observing a fly frisking about her hive, asked him in a very angry tone what he did there. "Is it for such fellows as you," said she, "to intrude into the company of the queens of the air?" "You have great reason, truly," replied the fly, "to be out of humor. I am sure they must be mad who would have any concern with so quarrelsome a nation." "And why so, may I ask?" returned the enraged bee. "We have the best laws and are governed by the best policy in the world. We feed upon the most fragrant flowers, and all our business is to make honey. Honey which equals nectar. Low, tasteless wretch, who lives upon nothing but vile things." "We live as we can," rejoined the fly. "Poverty, I hope, is no crime, but passion is one, I am sure. The honey you make is sweet, I grant you, but your heart is all bitterness, for to be revenged on an enemy you will destroy your own life, and are so foolish in your rage as to do more mischief to yourselves than to your enemy. take my word for it, one had better have fewer talents and use them more wisely. Well-governed communities should make well-governed individuals. A man bitten by a dog. A man who had been bitten by a dog was advised by an old woman to cure the wound by rubbing a piece of bread in it and giving it to the dog that had bitten him. He did so, and Aesop, passing by at the time, asked him what he was about. The man told him, and Aesop replied, "I'm glad you do it privately, for if the rest of the dogs of the town were to see you, we should be eaten up alive." Season counsel with sense. I feel like these days, people don't think of dog bites as anything really bad, because you never really get bitten too bad by a dog these days. But my sister was a dog groomer for a bit, and not only a dog groomer, but she was a dog groomer for a grooming salon that was created by a veterinarian groomer. And veterinarian dog groomers groom the dogs that are taken to the vet, and the dogs that are taken to the vet to be groomed are the ones who are so badly behaved that normal grooming salons won't take them. When normal grooming salons won't take them, they say you have to go to the vet and get them groomed there if that's what you want. So this vet groomer went and started her own dog grooming business, and they almost never said no to a dog. So my sister started grooming the most poorly behaved dogs you could imagine. The kind that really should have been taken to the vet. So she's seen, thankfully not experienced. I mean, she's experienced her fair share of bites and scrapes. But there was one that was really bad. I mean, if you get a dog that's big enough and they really bite, it can be really bad. She's seen a real dog bite. It is not pretty. Not pretty at all. The hares and the frogs. The hares once took serious counsel among themselves whether death itself would not be better than their wretched lot. What a sad state is ours, they said, never to eat in comfort, always to sleep in fear, to be startled by a shadow, and to fly with beating heart at the rustling of the leaves. Better death by far. And off they went accordingly to drown themselves in a neighboring lake. Some scores of frogs who were enjoying the moonlight on the bank, scared at the approach of the hares, jumped into the water. The splash awoke fresh fears in the breasts of the timid hares, and they came to a full stop in their flight. One wise old fellow among them cried, "Hold, brothers, see, weak and fearful as we are, beings exist that are more weak and fearful still. Why then should we seek to die? Let us rather make the best of our lot, such as it is. There are always some whose station is worse than your own." The generous lion. Let's get our little friend here. It's his time to shine again. A lion, having slain a bullock, stood over it, lashing his sides with his tail. A thief who was passing by stopped impudently demanded half shares. "You are always too ready to take what does not belong to you," answered the lion. "Go your way, I have nothing to say to you." The thief saw that the lion was not to be trifled with, and went off. Just then a traveler came up, and seeing the lion, modestly withdrew. The generous beast, with a courteous air, called him forward, and, dividing the bullock in halves, told the man to take one, and in order that the latter might be under no restraint, carried his own portion away into the forest. Modesty gains favor in a king's eyes. Oh, look at this. Now it's time for our other friend, the tortoise and the eagle. A tortoise, weary of crawling about on the ground at a snail's pace, desired to fly in the air like the birds, and gave out that if any bird would take him up in the clouds and show him the world, he would tell him in return where to find treasures hid in the earth. The eagle thereupon did as he wished, but finding that the tortoise could not keep his word, carried him up once more, and let him fall on a hard rock, where he was dashed to pieces. Never make rash promises. The peacock and the magpie. The birds once met together to choose a king, and among others, the peacock was a candidate. Spreading his showy tail and stalking up and down with affected grandeur, he caught the eyes of the silly multitude by his brilliant appearance, and was elected by acclamation. Just as they were going to proclaim him, the magpie stepped forth into the midst of the assembly, and thus addressed the new king. "May it please your majesty elect to permit a humble admirer to pose a question. As our king, we put our lives and fortunes in your hands. If therefore the eagle, the vulture, and the kite should in the future, as they have in times past, make a descent upon us, what means would you take for our defense?" The pithy question opened the eyes of the birds to the weakness of their choice. They cancelled the election, and have ever since regarded the peacock as a vain pretender, and considered the magpie to be as a good speaker as any of their number. The crowd is caught by display. The ass. And the sick lion. It was reported that the lion was sick and confined to his den, where he would be happy to see any of his subjects who might come to pay the homage that was due to him. Many accordingly went in, and fell easy prey to the old lion, who devoured them at his leisure. But it was observed that the ass very carefully kept away. The lion noticed his absence, and sent one of his jackals to express a hope that he would show he was not insensible to motives of respect and charity, by coming and paying his duty like the rest. The ass told the jackal to offer his sincerest reverence to his master, say that he had more than once been on the point of coming to see him, but the truth of the matter, he observed dryly, is that all the footprints I see go into the cave, but none come out again. So for the present, my health demands that I stay away. It is wise to see one's way out before one ventures in. The Fox and the Bramble. A fox, hotly pursued by the hounds, jumped through a hedge, and his feet were sadly torn by a bramble that grew in its midst. He fell to licking his paws, with many a curse against the bramble for its unkind treatment. Softly, softly, good words, if you please, Master Fox, said the bramble. I thought you knew better than to lay hold of one whose nature it is to lay hold of others. Never trust the untrustworthy. The sheep biter. I assume this is the sheep biter. A certain shepherd had a dog in whom he placed such great trust that he would often leave the flock to his sole care. As soon as his master's back was turned, however, the cur, although well fed and kindly treated, used to worry the sheep, and would sometimes kill one and devour a portion. The man at last found out how much his confidence had been abused, and resolved to hang the dog without mercy. When the rope was put around his neck, the dog pleaded hard for his life, and begged the master rather to hang the wolf, who had done 10 times as much harm to the flock as he had. That may be, replied the man sternly, but you are 10 times the greater villain for all that. Nothing shall save you from the fate which your treachery deserves. The most dangerous enemy is the one within. Et tu, dog, et tu. I like this illustration. The Council of Horses. Once upon a time, a brash young colt, dissatisfied with the lot of his kind, complained loudly to the Council of Horses. How abject is our race! Are we condemned to slavery and servitude because our sires so willingly bore the chain? Is it right that men should exploit our strength? Were we created only to serve their needs, dragging their plowshares, sweating in their harnesses, groaning beneath the loads they pile on our backs? Reject the rein and spurn the spur. Let us be like the lion and tiger and assert our claim to freedom and independence. Neighs of assent broke out among the assembled horses, and there was a great pawing of the ground in applause. But all were silenced when a steed of great age and long experience addressed the assembly thus: Would I have the health and strength of my youth, I toiled as you do. Now my grateful owner rewards my past pains by allowing me to roam freely and to feed on the crops yielded by the fields I once plowed. It is true that man expects us to lend our pains to his endeavors, but does he not divide his care through all our labors of the year? Does he not provide us with buildings to shield us from the inclement weather and to keep our hay dry? Does he not share with us the bounty of the harvest, since it is decreed that all creatures should help one another? Ought we not be happy with our seeing the wisdom of what their elders said, the horses previously fired by the young colt's discontent agreed, and the tumult ceased. Those who know their station in life know the greatest contentment. Alright, let's read this last story here. The Cock. And the Jewel. A hungry cock, scratching for food in the straw in the barnyard, happened to turn up a jewel. Feeling quite sure that it was something precious, but not knowing well what to do with it, he addressed it with an air of affected wisdom as follows. You are a very fine thing, no doubt, but you are not at all to my taste. For my part, I would rather have 1 grain of good barley than all the jewels in the world. A thing is of value only so far as it is of use. Very true. Alright. I hope you enjoyed this reading of Aesop's Illustrated Fables. I love this beautiful book. Let me know if you enjoyed, and please also let me know what you think about these rainy day readings. Do you enjoy them?